record it, so recording is being done. Thank you for having me and for showing up. What's the market like in Springfield? Somebody tell me out loud. What's going on?
0.9 month supply of inventory.
What'd you say? How many months?
0.9.
0.9. And then you'll turn on the news and they'll go, it's up 300%. Right? Because, you know, there was 0.1 months worth of inventory or whatever a year ago. So 0.9 months worth of inventory. So nobody laughed at that joke. It was really funny, but that's okay. I'm not going to keep score. So 0.9 month supply. Multiple offers, yes or no?
Yes.
Who is selling fewer homes this year than last year? It's probably most of you. Raise your hand if you're either behind goal from where you wanted to be or you're selling fewer homes this year from last year. Raise your hand. I think the rest of you are lying to me, and that's okay. The truth is, in the Midwest, where you are, you're almost at pandemic level home sales as far as pendings. And when I say pandemic level, I mean like April of 2020. And I sent you that. Did anybody get my email this morning where I sent you that little chart from NAR that said you're back to, now that's Midwest. That doesn't necessarily mean that's Springfield, Missouri, but it's a Midwest number. And we've got to pay attention to trends. The other thing we've noticed is that 2022 was one of the largest year-over-year declines in home sales ever. Why? Because of the number you just gave me, 0.9 months worth of inventory. So if there aren't homes on the market to sell, it makes it hard to sell them, yes or no?
Yes.
All right. This is going to be interactive, by the way, for the record. So you're going to interact with me. Listen, my name's James. I've been with Keller Williams 18 years. And Rachel, we were in a bowl together, weren't we, back in the day?
Yes, we were.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. And I think you've got great leadership in this market center. We had 125 market centers asked to do one of these meetings. I picked 3 based on the leadership and the engagement from the group, and yours is one of them I picked. So thank you for having me. Yeah. Oh, thank you for clapping. That's very sweet. So what we're going to talk about is how you win. I want to spend part of the time, and Rachel, you cut me off. I have about 40 minutes of content. Does that work for you?
That's perfect.
Okay. So we'll go through a couple of slides because I want to set the stage for kind of what's happening market-wise, but then I want to open it up for you to interact as well. I've been with Keller Williams 18 years and sat in just about every seat as an agent. I was on a team. Actually, our team was #1 in all of Keller Williams back in 2006. The company looked really different back then. Who in this room was with Keller Williams back in 2006? Is there anybody in this room that was with Keller Williams in 2006? A couple people. We had 65,000 agents back then, if you remember. And at family reunion that year, we'd gone to Vegas for family reunion, and we had passed Prudential, which doesn't even exist anymore as a real estate brand, but we had passed Prudential to be the 4th largest real estate company in the U.S. And you'd have thought we won like the Super Bowl or something. I mean, it was wild. Zig Ziglar did the keynote that year at family reunion, which was just absolutely amazing. But that was kind of how I started in the company. Then I made a mistake. Who in this room in Springfield's made a mistake? Raise your hand if you've ever made a mistake. Raise your hand if you've ever made a mistake. Okay, who is not going to raise their hand today? Raise your hand if you are not going to raise your hand. Because that's fun. I married my college girlfriend. That was a big mistake. Don't do that. Big mistake. And we got divorced in like 15 minutes, and it was fascinating. So what do you do when you're married and divorced in 13 months and broke? Well, I was already in real estate. I was on the #1 team in the company, but I'm living in my ex-wife's hometown in Crown Point, Indiana, so this wasn't going to work. What do? You run to your mom. And so that's what I did. I came down here to Tampa. I'm in the Tampa Bay area now. I came down here to Tampa. I was the assistant team leader of the South Tampa Market Center. I started in 2007. Who was selling houses back in 2007? Raise your hand. Selling houses. Now, you probably didn't experience a shift in Missouri until 2009, but we saw it in Florida in 2007. We lost 3 years of home value in 90 days. It was tough. It was tough. And I was an assistant team leader down there at the time. I'd always wanted to be a team leader. I think team leader is the best job opportunity in Keller Williams. I do believe that. Let me fix that. I think former team leader is the best job title in California. But in order to have that, you got to be a team leader first. So I spent 8 years as a team leader, all of it during the Great Recession. So I'd come to Tampa to be an assistant team leader. I did that for about 1.5 years, but then had an opportunity to go be a team leader in Cary, North Carolina. Does anybody know where Cary, North Carolina is? Just outside of Raleigh, and was a team leader there. Now listen to this. I want to set some perspective because the last time when I became a team leader was the last time we saw the market do what it's doing right now. We had 110 associates in our office in January 4th, 2009 was my first day as a team leader, 110 agents. Average size market center then was about 130. The market centers were not the size they are today. They were much smaller back then. We had 110, so a little bit below average in market center size. Within 60 days, so February 28th, we had 89 people. The job of the team leader is not to shrink the market center as quickly as possible. Right? Rachel, who's the OP of your office?
Dan Holt, your famous friend.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I love Dan. I'm going to be in his region tomorrow. Like when Dan hires a team leader, he doesn't say, go shrink the office quickly. It's let's grow the market center. But my office shrunk by 20% in 60 days. Why? Just shout out answers. Why did that happen?
It got hard.
It got hard. Thank you, by the way. Usually the first answer is because you stunk as a team leader. So thank you for not shouting that out. The market got hard. The market was falling off the table. Sales were declining. Prices were declining. Agents were making less money, and they were straight up getting out of the business. Now, we did everything we could to keep our agent count flat. After we had that initial hit of going from 110 to 89, we ended up finishing the year with 89 people. And the story behind that was we implemented 2 things that are really important to me. One of them was Bold, by the way. And that's why I was a Bold coach for several years, because I saw the impact Bold had. We had one of the very first Bolds ever outside of Austin, Texas, September of 2009. 45 of my 89 agents were in Bold. We ended up with the best fourth quarter our market center had ever seen up to that point in its history. And that's when I saw what Bold did, which is why I became a Bold coach for a period of time. Did it in St. Louis. I don't know if any of you were ever in that room with me, but I did it in St. Louis and so in Kansas City. But we definitely saw the impact of that. The other one, though, let me go into my little bag, is something that you might have heard of. Let me just get it out. This book right here. Anybody heard of this book right here, Shift? Anybody heard of Shift ever? 3 people? Awesome. We're off to a great start. This book came out in 2009. This is my original copy that I got as a team leader. I read it on a plane on the way to Mega Camp. And they did a whole Mega Camp on this book right here. Listen, when we implemented the stuff we learned from Bold and the stuff from this book, our market center went from number 12 in the Board of Realtors to number 3. It went from number 3 in the town of Cary, which has a population about 150,000. We were the number 3 real estate office in the town of Cary. We went to number 1. We grew from 89. Well, we had 110, went down to 89 people, got to 165. Back then, that was huge. That was massive growth. And became the 3rd most profitable region in the Carolinas, or the 3rd most profitable market center in the Carolinas region. And if you know anything about the Carolinas region, there are elite market centers in that region. I was very proud of what we did. And we did it from implementing these strategies in the book. And I'm going to go through a hand of them today. I met my wife, Terry, in Raleigh, and our daughter, Naomi, was born there. Naomi is now 11 years old. We moved to Tampa Bay so I could be a team leader again in the Tampa Bay area. We took that market center to number 1 in the region in profitability. I grew it from 164 to 301, grew company dollar by 178%. So I was very excited about that. Again, all during the Great Recession. Now, I start going to do Bold, and Bold is awesome, and I loved it. But on March, do you remember, who remembers March of 2020? Who remembers that? I know you're in Missouri and I'm in Florida, so neither of our states actually had COVID. But I'm not actually, it's against the law for me to even say the word here in the state of Florida. But the thing about it was, I was in Mexico at family reunion, March of 2020. They had all of the regions outside of North America have their own family reunions. So the outside of the US and Canada, they have their own. And I was doing family reunion from Mexico. And I'd done my session. This is March of 2020. And I do my session and I go back to my room and I flip on the TV and the TV says at the bottom of the screen, Tom Hanks has COVID. Do y'all remember this? Who remembers that? Who remembers where you were? Most people remember where they were and they found out Tom Hanks had COVID. And to me, I find that so fascinating because the guy lived on an island by himself. That's a Castaway joke. It's a movie joke. So, but that's fine. You don't laugh in Missouri. But the thing about it is, then everything started to change. Listen, I'm an action first person. Where are my action first people? Raise your hand. You get into action and think about it later. Action first people, by the way, make a ton of mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, but we get into action quickly. And one of the things I did was I thought we're going to need to get together in Mastermind. We're going to need to chat. We're going to need to hang out. And so that's why March 16, 2020, I started the Pivot Shift Ahead Facebook group. And the whole lot, who's a member of that, by the way? Raise your hand if you're a member of Pivot Shift Ahead. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. The rest of you, what is your problem? If you go open your Facebook app on your phone and type in Pivot Shift Ahead, you can join our Facebook group. There's 112,000 members of the group. And let me tell you real quick about what we do, because it's not like most Facebook groups you're in. First of all, it's not a democracy. I approve every post that goes in there, and that keeps us from having stupid conversations. That keeps us from things getting off the rails, right? So if you're not a member of Pivot Shift Ahead, I would get in there. It's a very safe community. It's an inspiring community. It's an uplifting community. And so I'd get in. Pivot Shift Ahead is the name of the Facebook group. There are more real estate people, more real estate agents who are members of Pivot Shift Ahead than actually work for all of RE/MAX. But I just, not that we're keeping score, but I think that's a big deal. Now, the big piece of this, the reason why I started the Facebook group is because I wanted to do a 20-minute kind of mindset and strategy call every day. And I thought I would do it for a few months. I didn't think it would be like 40 months, which is where we are right now. But I thought we'd do it for a few months. That mastermind call happens every day at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. You can watch the live stream of it in Pivot Shift Ahead or join on Zoom at pivotshiftcall.com. Again, the Zoom link is pivotshiftcall.com. It's a 20-minute mastermind. There is no selling. There is no pushing product. It is a legit mastermind. We might read something from the book and then open it up to hear from you. Today, we spent all 20 minutes talking about helping sellers understand pricing in today's market. Has that been a challenge for any person in this room, getting sellers to understand pricing in today's market? Only the 2 people who've been on listing appointments. Great. Good. So the rest of you, that's totally cool. But we just talk about stuff to help you win and hear from other agents. Now, if that time doesn't work for you, you can always watch the recording. The recording is posted in the Facebook group under the featured section. It's the 20-minute call. You can listen to it while driving the kids to school, whatever you want to do. But I recommend you get in there. And some of the stuff we'll talk about today is stuff we've talked about in that group. So I want to show you some slides. Let me pull this open real quick, and let me show you some great slides. This is going to be very exciting. And you've never seen anything like this before. But I want you to give me a thought, and I'm going to bounce around from some slides, and then I got my fancy cam and different things. But I want to talk about what's going on with the market right now, and I want active participation. And to help you sound smart, I put answers on the screen already, so you can shout them out. But I want to talk about what are some signs economically that we might see a shift in the real estate world. Just guess by looking at the screen and the first bullet point in the upper right-hand corner. What is one thing that might impact our market and cause a shift? Go.
Mortgage rates.
You're so smart. I'm so proud of you. You have the smartest people. Here's what's happened to mortgage rates. Look at this in a historical perspective. When you look at this, and I don't know what the rates are today, maybe around 6%. I have no idea. I'm not a loan officer. But if you look at this, have rates gone up in the last year or so? Yes or no?
Yes.
When I interviewed the chief economist of NAR, his name's Dr. Lawrence Yun. When I interviewed him in January, he told me that the increase in interest rate is the only reason why home sales declined in 2022. That when the interest rate went from 3.8% to 5.97% or whatever it is, That was why people stopped looking, period. That was the only reason. By the way, I have a 20 or 30-minute interview with Dr. Yoon. Rachel, can I send that to everybody? Would that be okay if I sent everybody that interview?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, what I will do is I have your whole roster. I'll send a recording of this along with some other recordings to your whole roster. Does that sound good?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, you got it. And I don't know when I'll do it because I have a couple things later, so it may not happen till tonight, but I'll get it out to everybody. But if you look here at the rates, tell me what you notice. Shout out answers. Tell me what you notice when you look at these rates. And this is just from the vision speech at Family Reunion is where I got this slide. What do you notice about rates? Shout it out.
They're low. Still low. Still very low. Still low.
They're low. Well, they're not low compared to last year, but they're low compared to what?
Historically.
Historical averages. Depending on what historical average you look at. If you look at a 50-year average of 50-year average is like 7.81%, thanks to the late 70s and early 80s. If you look at the 30-year average, what I would say is rates aren't going up, they're just going back to normal. Like, isn't that the perspective we would have? And couldn't you share with a buyer who's concerned about rates and say, you know, it's not really that rates are going up, they're just going back to normal. We had historically low interest rates for 10 years, but now they're just going back to what we tend to see, over a 30-year period, and yet still well below the 50-year average. But we've got to set the stage for that. And when I interviewed Dr. Yoon, and you'll see it in the video, he said, look, the 3% stuff is over forever. Now, do you have buyers who say, I'm going to wait for rates to drop? Have you had any buyers say that? Yeah, they're probably going to wait a lifetime. There was an interview. I'll send this to you too. Now I got to take notes. Hold on. Because I got to remember all the stuff I promised I would send you. So Dr. Yoon, okay, got that. Then I'm going to send this NPR interview. Now I shared this inside of Pivot Shift Ahead a couple of weeks ago, and we did a whole mastermind call around it too. But NPR interviewed people who were buying despite high interest rates. And one of the guys said, it's because he realized that he would have to wait an entire lifetime to see rates that low again. And he wanted to make money now, not later. So he wanted to grow his wealth now, not later. So he went ahead and bought. Would that help a buyer? If you have a buyer who's saying, I want to wait for rates to drop, would it be helpful to send them a 3-minute NPR video where they actually give context around what's happening right now? So I'll send it to you. Because see, Gary Keller told us at Family Reunion, not this year, but the year before. Did anybody go to Orlando's Family Reunion? Did anybody go to that one? Not the one last year in Anaheim, but the one the year before in Orlando. And Gary said at that family reunion, our job is to provide perspective to potential buyers and sellers. Can you write that down? What's our job is to do what? Come on.
Provide perspective.
Provide perspective. That's our job. And the thing about the problem is that most people are getting their perspective from where? The news media is one. Who else?
The guy down the street.
The person down the street who bought their house 6 years ago or sold their house in the beginning of the pandemic or whatever. And chances are, whatever their perspective they're getting, they might get it from their parents who say, who don't understand what's going on. I mean, who knows where they're getting it, but they've got to get it from you. And so I think our job is to provide perspective to potential buyers and sellers and our database. And my question is, are you doing that? Are you providing perspective to people? When you see a story pop up like this NPR story that I'll send you, are you putting that all over your socials? Are you sending that to every buyer in your pipeline? Anybody who's ever even mentioned the idea of buying in today's market? Like, how are you leveraging stuff to help you? Because our job is to do what?
Provide perspective.
They're geniuses. I like you. That's our job. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep looking at stuff. I get very excitable sometimes, so you'll just have to forgive me. Okay, so we talked mortgage rates. Look at the upper right-hand corner of the screen and see if you can guess what is another sign of a shift. Go.
Home prices.
Well, what's happened to home prices? Here's what's happened to home prices. Take a look at this. Here's what's happened to home prices right here. The teal trend line is a 4% annual trend, which is where we would like to be when it comes to appreciation. But we've been well above that. If you look, these pandemic years, 12% above the trend. But the truth is we had to make up for the gap for the previous decade. Now, this is the first year NAR has forecasted actually a decrease in home price since 2008. They're forecasting a decrease in home price. Now, remember, this is NAR. So the price that they show you is the median home price where? This is the median home price for what geographic area?
US or US?
The United States. Well, that doesn't have diddly poo to do with what's happening in Springfield, Missouri, right? When I show you a thing like this, it's like saying that the high today in the United States is 72 degrees, right? It doesn't mean anything, but does it show you the trend? Sure, it does. So what's happening to home prices in Springfield? Tell me.
They're everywhere.
Well, what's the median home price in Springfield?
269.
What is it? 270 what?
250, 270, somewhere in that range.
250. So this 382 number, whatever I throw it up on the screen, has nothing to do with you. Now, by the way, I would just say as a general rule, that's probably a number that every single person in this room should know. Every single person in this room should probably know what's the median home price in the area in which I sell. And would it be fair to say that different parts of Springfield are going to have different median home prices, right? And if you sell in this neighborhood more than another, your price point might be different. But that's data we've got to know, because our job, again, is to do what? What do we say it was? What is it?
Perspective.
You're geniuses. This is why I like you. Our job is to provide perspective. Okay, so home prices, by the way, here's what's happened. If interest rates go up and home prices go up, what happens to affordability?
It goes down.
It goes down. You're smart. I like it. Okay, let's talk about the next one. So there's some other home price stuff. All right, now I don't have them on the screen anymore. So now you have to actually think of them. We've talked about interest rates and home prices being something that might cause an economic shift. What's something else? What's the big one we've been talking about for over a year?
Inflation.
Inflation, yeah. And if we look at inflation, by the way, inflation has come way down this year. You're now looking at about a 5% annual inflation, which is still above what the target is. The target is like 2%. But you're at a 5% annual inflation, but we were at a 9% annual inflation for a period of time. And so, by the way, let me just share with you, this is again from the vision speech, but let me share with you. At family reunion this year, I was invited to speak to KW Worldwide. So if you're curious about how Keller Williams works, KWRI kind of oversees the regions that are in the United States and Canada. And then anything outside of that falls under KW Worldwide. There are 58 regions outside of the United States and Canada. Did you know that? 58 regions, 18,000 agents. I got to speak to them. So I got to speak to all 58 regions. We spent a whole day. I have a day version of what we're going to do in 45 minutes. We spent a whole day going through this stuff. And I asked them, what's the number one issue you're facing in your local area? Remember, 58 countries in the room. And the number one answer for all 58 countries was what?
Inflation.
Inflation. It's a global issue. It's a global problem. I heard a story the other day in the UK, their annual inflation there is like 13%. Still to this day, right now, 13%. Now, when you look at it, for most of you in this room, inflation is annoying. For most of you in the room, it's annoying. You went and eggs were like, what were eggs? What did eggs cost like 6 months ago? They cost like $6 for a dozen or something like that. I don't know. I think that price has come down. But is that expensive for eggs? Yes, especially if you were Gaston's mom. Some of you will get that on the way home, but that's actually really funny. The thing about that is, though, most of you just went ahead and bought eggs anyway. Now, what is it? It's like chicken is more expensive, like, $7 a pound for chicken. I have no idea what stuff costs, but for most of you in the room, it's annoying. You spend $150 a week to get groceries, and then you go spend $225 a week for groceries. That's annoying, but it's not life-changing for most people in this room. If it costs you $100 to put gas in your car, and then it costs you $150 to put gas in your car, that's annoying for most of you. It's not life-changing. But for some people, it is life-changing. So let's think about our world for just a minute. The largest segment of home buyers every year tends to be what segment?
First
time.
Thank you. Thank you. Just shout out the answer. Just be right. By the way, it's traditionally 45% of the buyer market is first-time home buyers. Does anybody know what it was in 2022?
63.
It was around 20%. It was the lowest ever. First-time home buyers represented the lowest percentage ever for home buyers in 2022. Why? It's pretty simple. Interest rates did what?
Went up.
Home prices did what?
Went up.
Cost of everything else on the planet did what?
Went up.
And let's think about why someone might be a first-time home buyer. See, in the United States, the segment of the population that is the highest spending demographic, anybody know what it is off the top of your head? Everybody always says millennials. Every time you shout out millennials, it's the wrong answer. I just want you to know. It's, by the way, it could be millennials, but it's actually growing families. It's pregnant people. People who are pregnant, we just got a tap on the back. Someone must be preggo in the room. Congratulations. Oh, she's saying no. Okay. Pregnant people spend more money than any other segment of the population. Now let's think about this. I remember this when Terry was pregnant 11 years ago. We needed a bigger house, right? But we needed a stroller. Who's ever picked out a stroller? Raise your hand if you've ever picked out a stroller. It's like buying a car. I mean, you test drive them, you think about them, you debate them. Did anybody else do that? It took us like 7 trips to buy Baby before we picked up. We went with the Up a Baby Vista, by the way, if anyone's curious. But the thing about it, that was stressful to me doing that. So you got to buy a stroller, you got to buy cribs, you got to buy clothes, you got to buy food, you got to buy all the stuff. And by the way, the cost of all that's gone which direction? Up. Then by the way, I need another house, but the cost of the house has gone up. The cost to borrow money to buy the house has gone up. Would it make sense that that segment would back down? It totally would. And so for us, again, though, we have to do what? Provide what? Perspective about the market. And inflation, thank goodness, is cooling down. All right, let's talk about another one. So we said inflation was a big one. Inflation. What's another thing that might tell us that things are shifting? We talked home prices, mortgage rates, inflation. What's another big one that's a hot topic right now? Jobs. Yeah, unemployment. Here's where it gets weird. Unemployment is historically low. In fact, it's lower than the number represented on here. This is the end of 2022. But the government would say you're effectively at full employment in the United States. Now, I know that we could debate about this. Well, there's this large segment of people that didn't go back to work. There's people that aren't reported. Does anybody know what group of people did not go back to work in the pandemic? I told you millennials is the wrong answer. I said you're going to shout out millennials and it's going to be wrong, and it's wrong. That's not true. Millennials are working. Do you know what group didn't go back?
Mothers.
Retired, close to retirement.
Baby boomers, the early retirees. This was the group that didn't go back to work. My mom is an example of one of those people. My mom's going to be 70 in like 3 weeks. She always loves it when I get in these classes and tell people how old my mom is. But my mom be 70. She retired early and didn't go back. She could have gone back. She was a nurse for 40 years. Do you think she was over it?
Yeah.
So she said, I'm done. I'm good. Yeah, I could work a few more years, but I don't need to work a few more years. I'm good. That's the largest segment of people that didn't go back to work. But this is where it starts to get weird. And this is why when you look at the shift we're in right now, bottom line is home sales are down year over year for the second year in a row. That's true. It's probably true in Springfield, but prices aren't. Prices aren't down. Normally, when sales go down, inventory goes up and prices go down. But that's not happening here. What's happening here is sales are going down, but inventory is staying low, which is continuing either prices to hold or go up. It's the weirdest shift we've ever seen. But for you, you get impacted by this because you end up selling fewer homes. Most agents sold fewer homes in 2022 than they did in 2021. Is that true for anyone in this room? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. I'm not talking about volume. I don't give 2 flips about volume. Volume is an overrated, silly, goofy number. I'm talking about units. How many of you sold fewer units in 22 than you did in 21? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. It's most of the room. And the rest of you just didn't sell houses ever. But that's okay. I still totally like you. Now, by the way, who's on track to sell fewer homes in 23 than you did in 22? Raise your hand. You were behind. Anybody? Thank you for being honest. So let's talk about what's happening. And this is where I get to go to what I call fancy cam. Are you excited to see Fancy Cam? Look at this. How fancy is that? It's a piece of paper. But let me walk you through this real quick. Let's talk about what's happened. Okay. So I'm going to draw for you. And can y'all see it okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can see what I'm drawing. Can you see it? Perfect. All right. So I'm going to draw this. And here's what we're going to look at. All right. We're going to look at 3 different years in home sales. And the first year I want to look at, well, what year is it right now?
23.
So I want to look at 2021. Does anybody know how many units were sold? What the unit number was in 2021? Anybody know roughly, give or take? It was about 6.2 million. All right. Roughly 6.2 million transactions. By the way, it was one of the top years in home sales in U.S. history. One of the top years. By the way, if I say there was 6.2 million units, how many sides were there?
12.4.
12.4, because there's 2 sides to every unit, a buyer and a seller. Lots of opportunity, yes or no? Come on.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Now, does anybody know what happened last year? About how many units?
4.9.
We'll just call it 5 million. 5 million. So here you have one of the largest year-over-year declines in home sales ever. This year, let's just guess, 4.5 million. Is that another decline? What's the answer? Yes, of course it is. So what does this mean for you? Well, this means you got to get your hiney to work. You got to get your hiney to work. So here's what I need you to do. First of all, there's going to be 4.5 million transactions in the US this year, roughly. That means how many sides?
9.
9 million sides. Now, here's what I want you to do. On a piece of paper, and here's what's great. I can see every single one of you because you have fancy technology in Springfield. Okay? It's fancy technology. Dan Holt is a technology wizard. That might be the biggest lie I've ever told in history. But what I want you to do is on your piece of paper, I'd like you to write down how many units you plan to sell in 2023. Write down, always come to team meeting with a piece of paper. Write down in your piece of paper, how many units are you going to sell in 2023? Everybody write it down. Go. By the way, if you haven't decided that number yet, you just had an aha. Now, did everybody write down their number? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to count to 3. You're going to shout out the number. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go.
Yes.
Was everyone's number below 4.5 million? Raise your hand if you tend to sell fewer than 4.5 million units in 2023. Raise your hand. Raise your hand up high. Get every hand up. Okay, so here's what we know. There's enough for you. The state of the market is irrelevant to the individual agent. The state of the market is what?
Relevant.
Irrelevant to the individual agent. There will always be enough for who? Not me. I don't sell homes in Springfield.
Us?
You. There'll always be enough for who?
You.
No, say me. Say me. There'll always be enough for who?
Me.
But not the person next to you and the person next to them and the person next. There isn't enough for everybody to reach their goal, but there's enough for you if you're willing to go do the right things. And here's the perspective I'd like you to have about it. Let's say, and this is not to scale, let's say this represents how many homes you sold in 2021. And let's say you did 36 transactions. I don't care how many you did, whatever number you did. And then 2022 comes along, okay? And what do we see? We see a 1.2 million unit decline. But you know what you do? You hold and you hit 36 units again. And then 2023 comes along and we see another decline, but you hold and you hit 36 units again. Here's my question. Is your business growing, declining, or flat?
Growing. Growing.
Yeah, you're smart. Most people, they say it's flat. Why did you say it's growing? Why are you so smart there in Springfield? Why did you say it's growing?
Taking market share.
Your market share is going up. Here's one of the lessons I want you to think about for 2023. You have one job. Write down this. Write down your one job. Your one job. Your one job is to make sure you sell as many homes in 23 as you did in 22. This may not be the year that you go grow your business. You know, I used to do one-on-one coaching with MAPS. I know Jen's part of your office. And if I were still a MAPS coach and I had a client who said, James, last year I did 36 transactions and this year I want to do 75, I'd go, wow, good for you. This is very exciting. Let's talk about the path on what it's going to take to get there, because this might not be the year to do that unless you're willing to do a significant increase in work. But if you hold your number, you still win this year. That's the point I want you to get. If you hold this number, you still what?
Win.
But what's your job? To hold the number. Whatever you do not go backwards in units this year. Don't do it. All right, what's the takeaway? What's the aha so far from what we talked about? What did you learn? What note have you written down? What's the takeaway or aha? Just shout it out.
Provide perspective.
Well, we have to provide perspective to potential buyers and sellers because they're saying dumb things right now. Well, because they don't have the perspective they need, just like you say dumb things when you don't have the perspective that you need about something. But they say things like, well, I'm going to wait for the market to crash. Have you had any buyers say, I'm going to wait for the market to crash before I buy? Yes or no? Yes. But the market isn't going to crash. Here's why did the market crash in 2008 and 9? Well, because unemployment went up, inventory went up, the type of loans that people had don't exist anymore, but they had them, they weren't paying them. So inventory goes up, prices come down, demand goes down. That's why. But now you have more W-2 jobs than you've ever had in history. You do not have subprime loans, and you still have ridiculously low inventory. There's no crash coming. But it would make sense that a buyer would say that because they lack what? Perspective. Our job is to provide it. Our job is to provide perspective. What's another lesson?
Units the same.
Look, you got to keep units the same, whatever you do. And we're going to talk about how you catch up in a minute, because if you think about it, the fastest way to catch up is to go all in on your database. In the Shift book on page 15, Gary says, build a fortress around what you have. Well, what's the only thing you have that nobody else has? What's the answer?
Database.
Database. That's the only thing you have nobody else has. And so we've got to know how to work it. Now, the thing about it is that we've got to actually talk to the database to build a fortress around it. We've got to add value to our database to build a fortress around it. And who in here in this room is willing to admit that they struggle when it comes to lead generating to the database every day? Raise your hand. This is something that you don't necessarily love to do. And that's because I think we might look at it a little bit backwards. Let me go back to Fancy Cam. Let's go back to Fancy Cam. All right. So I'm going to go back to Fancy Cam, and I want to walk through something with you very quickly. I think there are two groups of people in our database. I think there's two groups of people in our database. Now, if you've read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, what you're going to think I mean is Mets and not Mets, but that's not what I'm talking about. Let's make it even simpler. I think there's two groups of people in the database. I think you have a group of people in your database who will have a real estate need this year, and you have a group of people in your database who will not have a real estate need this year. Would that be fair to say, yes or no?
Yes.
Which group is larger? The not. Yeah. But you spend most of your time looking for you have two groups of people in the database, people who do have a real estate need this year and people who don't. The people who don't's the largest group, but you spend most of your time looking for. That's right. Let's talk about it. I believe that roughly your database is split up like this. 85% of the people have no real estate need this year and 15% do. Now that real estate need might be a referral, but I think the majority of your database, 85 to 90% of it, has no real estate need this year. When you get up every day and ask the question, oh my gosh, I need a listing. How can I go find someone on my database to sell their house? I think you're looking for, what's the cliche? A needle in a what? When you get up every day and you go, oh my gosh, I need to go find someone that needs to buy or sell, I think you're looking for a needle in a haystack, and I think that leads to a ton of rejection because most of the people you talk to have no need, and rejection makes you feel bad. You don't like rejection, and so you go, well, I'm not even going to call them then because I don't like getting rejected. How many of you don't like rejection? Raise your hand. You don't like rejection. Rejection is not your friend. Most of you, the rest of you like rejection. You're like me. 1,500 matches on eHarmony before I met my wife. I'm great at rejection. But I think about, what if we flipped it and we said, actually, Our job is to provide value to the 85%. I think our job is to add value to the 85% on a regular basis, because when we add value to the 85%, eventually what happens? They become the 15%. And when the 85% moves to the 15%, and you've spent your entire real estate career adding value to this 85%, once they move to the 15%, what happens? Exactly that. Your phone rings. It's like we planned that. That's exactly what happened. Your phone rings and they call you and they say, "Hey, Mary Jo, it's me, Johnny Sue. Mary Jo, we are retiring to Texas. We need you to come sell our house." Who's ever had one of those calls? Who's ever had a call? Listen to me. Who's ever had a call where the phone rang and they said, "Come list our house, we're moving"? Raise your hand. You've ever had a "come list my house" call? Raise your hand. Do you know what? There's no such thing as a "come list my house" call. The "come list my house" call comes from you adding value to the 85%. If you wake up every day, listen to me, every day and ask this question: how can I add value to the 85%? So when they become the 15%, I'm their person. That's what I need you to wake up doing every day. That's how we win. So the question becomes, well, how do I do that? So I want to walk you through some data. I interviewed Anna Kruger. Does anybody know Anna Kruger? Anna Kruger is a MAPS coach. She's an absolute genius. Her whole thing is to figure out benchmarks. And I asked her some questions. I'm going to send you this video too. Let me write that down. Anna. I did a 20-minute video with her. You should go watch it. I'm going to send you the video with Anna Kruger. Anna, I asked her some questions. I said, give me some benchmarks when it comes to lead gen. Here's what she said. You might write these down. First of all, it takes you 3 minutes to get to motivation. She says, so if you're dialing and smiling and dialing and calling and hoping and all that kind of stuff, the goal, you won't know someone's motivation unless you have a 3-minute conversation, 3 minutes to motivation. She said, if you talk any longer than 12 minutes, you need an appointment. So 3 minutes to motivation, 12 minutes, you need an appointment. I said, okay, that's fine. That's cute. But just give it to me like this. How many people do I have to talk to get paid? Like, I just want to know, how many conversations does it take for me to get a closing? Would that be helpful to anybody? I think if you start the year and you say, all right, I want to sell 36 homes this year, so how many conversations do I need to have to guarantee I hit the number? I think that would be helpful. So that's what I wanted to know. So anybody know what the number is? It's more than you think. She said, historically, it's 75 contacts to a closing. For every 75 people you talk to. And by the way, a conversation, hey, it's James from Keller Williams, and you go, leave me alone, I hate you, click. Is that a conversation?
Yes.
Yes, it's conversation. If I call you and leave a voicemail, is that a conversation? No. If I send you a text, DM, Facebook message, and you reply, is that a conversation?
Yes.
Yes. If you and I talk in an open house, is that a conversation? You get it, right? So people always say, well, what's a conversation? So now you know what a conversation is. All right. So all right. I said, how many contacts is it? She said, historically, it's 75. But because of the way the market is right now, it just takes more contacts to get a closing. It's 100. It's 100 contacts to a closing. So now I want to walk you through something. You'll need a calculator. Everybody get out your calculator. Everybody get out your calculator. I can see you, so I can tell if you're grabbing your phone. Get out your calculator. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about, today is May 16th. Today is May 16th. How many closings do you need to have between today and December 31st to hit your goal? And put that number in your calculator. How many closings must you have between today and December 31st to hit your goal? We're not counting the closings you've already had. How many closings must you have between today and December 31st to hit the goal? Does everybody have that in the calculator? All right. Multiply it times 100. Now, this is easy math, but the math's going to get harder. So that's why you're doing it in your calculator. Now, that number represents what?
Conversations.
Conversations you've got to have in order to hit your goal this year. Got it? Okay. But here's the thing we have to think about. Rachel, are you still in the room? Where's Rachel?
I am. I'm over here.
Rachel, you tell me, because you run the show there. If an agent has a conversation, can an agent have a conversation, list the house, get it under contract, get it closed, and get paid in one day in Springfield?
Nope.
Okay. How long, and you all can shout it out, but Rachel, you might know. Let's say I have a listing. No, let's say I get my listing under contract. How long does it take in Springfield to go from contract to close?
45 days.
Okay. All right. Everybody write that down. 45 days. So if I want, so 45 days. Okay. Got it. So that would mean if I want to close by December 31st, I've got to be under contract by November 15th. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Now, Rachel, what's average days on market right now in Springfield? If I list a house, how long does it take to go under contract?
Our average days on market is 19.
19 days. Okay, to make it easy, let's just call it 21, make it 3 weeks. And so now I have to go back 3 weeks. So now I'm like October, what, 20th? Okay. Now, Rachel, do you find that your agents in your office, they might call someone in their database and the person says, oh my gosh, we need to sell our house. And the agent goes over that day, lists it that day, gets it in the MLS that day, and it's ready for showings that day?
No.
What's the lead time for that?
I would say maybe on average a week.
A week. So now we're to, okay, let's just back it up 5 days. And now we're at October 15th. Okay. So now let's say that, how many of you, tell me this, when you reach out to someone and they say, oh yeah, we're thinking about buying, we're thinking about selling. How long is it though before you actually get them to sign the listing agreement or sign the buyer agency agreement? Like from initial conversation to actually signing to agree to work with you, how long does that take? Anybody?
Varies.
Give me a guess.
2 weeks.
2 weeks? All right, so now we're to October 1st. Okay. So here's what I'm seeing. That number of contacts that you just came up with, that's how many contacts you have to have by what? October 1st. You have to have that number of contacts by October 1st. Now, let me get out my calculator, or my calendar rather. It's the 16th of May. Weeks between now and October 1st is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is very exciting. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's 20 weeks between now and October 31st. So take the number that's in your calculator. That's how many contacts you've got to have by October 31st and divide it by 20. Divide it by 20. Somebody tell me what you got.
140.
140. All right. So we know now we need to do 140 contacts a week in order to hit our closing number. Who tossed out 140? Who was that?
Me.
Who's me?
Amy.
Amy?
Us.
Where are you, Amy? You're a
Right
smart person, Amy. How are you back there in the 4th row?
I'm fine.
Awesome. Amy, let me ask you a question. How many days a week are you going to lead generate?
I work on trying to do it 5 days a week.
Well, I don't ask about trying now. I'm just asking though, in this model, how many days a week are you going to lead generate?
I'm going to have to fight at least 5 days a week.
Okay, 5 days a week. So 140 divided by 5 is what?
I'm so good at math.
It's 28. I went to Ball State. Chirp, chirp. I know math, right? I took one math class at Ball State, so I'm great at it. It's 28.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amy, here's what I know right here to be true. Your goal is guaranteed. It's what?
Guaranteed.
If you do 28 contacts
Yeah.
every workday between now and October 31 or
Awesome.
October 1, guaranteed. Now, the thing about it is I want to change it up. Remember, our job is to do what? What did we say it was earlier?
Provide perspective.
Listen, if I call someone in my database and say, hey, I wanted to make sure you knew about XYZ event going on in town, I'd love to invite you. Is that providing perspective, adding value, checking in with your database? What's the answer?
Yes.
If I meet somebody at an open house that's thinking about buying, is that connecting with someone? Yes or no?
Yes.
If I'm sending out regular touches about home value, is that providing perspective to someone? Yes or no?
Yes.
We've got to do 28 of those every single day. If you do 28 of those, I don't care how many people actually say, come list my house or I want to buy. It's not about that. The way you win is by talking to 28 people every day and adding value and providing perspective. That's how you win. It's kind of like this, and we'll wrap with this. And I hope this was of some value to you. But here's what I want you to get. When I got on, does anybody know about the scale you have in your bathroom? And who gets on it right around the holidays? I do, and I did. And I got on it, and I went, whoa. Has anybody ever done that? Have you ever had a whoa when you got on the scale? I got on the scale right after Christmas and said, oh my, that's a number I haven't seen as a first number in a really long time. And I said, this isn't going to work. When the pandemic started, I was running 100 miles a month. Then I had an injury, a series of injuries that kept me from running a lot. And so then I sat around on my butt and got chunky. And I'm still chunky, but I'm working on it. And I decided I'm not going to do this anymore. So I said, you know what? I got to change something. And then I saw this thing from James Clear and then a video from Cory Booker. Do you know Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey? And what Cory Booker did last year is he ran every single day in 2022. But he set himself up with a goal that he could win. He said, I'm just going to run 10 minutes. I'm going to run at least 10 minutes every single day. Set up a winnable goal for himself, at least 10 minutes every single day. That led to him running every single day last year. I said, well, I can do that because you can do anything for 10 minutes. So I said, I'm going to run a minimum of 10 minutes every single day this year. Today, I ran 2 miles. Yesterday, I ran 3. I've run however many days it's been, 123 days this year, something like this. I've run almost 400 miles this year, which is more than 10 minutes a day average. And I'm down 13 pounds. Why? Because I figured out the secret. The secret to success is consistency, not intensity. The number I just gave you, Amy, is a consistent number. Most real estate agents go, I haven't lead generated for a week, so I need to go do a bold 100. By the way, Amy, if we had done this exercise in October of last year, your daily contact number would be less than 28 because we'd have a full year. We'd have from 10-1 to 10-1 to get the number in. We'd have 52 weeks instead of, 20 weeks to get it done. In fact, take the number you have written down, the original number of contacts needed to hit your goal, and divide it by 50 instead of 20, and it goes down significantly. The lesson is to succeed in a shift, you must be focused on consistency over intensity. Figure out what's your number. For Amy, it's 28. If she starts it a year in advance, it's half that. It's probably 12 or 14 a day. And if Amy does 12 a day every day, just gets up and who are my 12 today, and who are my 12 today, and who are my 12, it's guaranteed. Now, Amy, if you want to make up the gap right now, it's 28, but guess what? On October 1, it's going to reset because 2024 starts on October 1st. Folks, I want you in consistency, not intensity, with the patience to let it pay off. Was this of value to you? I went over my time. I'm sorry.
Yes.
All right. Let me tell you real quick. I love helping people. If you want to connect, my Instagram is James D. Shaw. I'm out of room for Facebook friends unless I'm friend Rachel. Don't want to do that. My Instagram is James D. Shaw. Send me a message. Connect with me there. Let me know what's working for you. James D. Shaw. My cell phone is 813-523-8459. 813-523-8459. If I can ever help you, send me a text. I'm going to email you later today or sometime tomorrow a series of videos I think you should watch along with the recording of this call. I'll send you the details on Pivot Shift Ahead, which is my free group. I have a paid group too called Inspire. That's an hour mastermind every week. I'll send you details on that. But Rachel, thanks for letting me come in. I hope it was of value. I'm sorry I went over my time, but thank you so much for having me. Bye, everybody. Share your ahas together. I appreciate you. See you later.